This presentation will show you how to organize and format the 10-page paper. This is what a complete 10-page paper with outline and works cited page looks like. The outline is the first page. You have at least 10 pages of text of the research paper, and it goes beyond the last line of the 10th page, and then a works cited page. Here's the way the words should look on the page. The first thing you make sure is that you've set the whole document to Times New Roman and 12-point font. You do that here and here. The first line of your heading on the very first page starts on the very first line of the page, left justified, and that's how you do this here. You want to make sure you set normal margins. You go to the Layout tab and Margins and Normal. You make sure the whole paper is double spaced. You do that here and down to 2. And if you see this indication here, if it says remove space after paragraph, that means that there are spaces that don't belong within the paper. You need to click that to make all the spacing between the lines the same. If you don't, your paper will look longer than it really is. So again, when you go to double space, if you see remove space after paragraph, you need to click it. Otherwise, your paper will look longer than it really is. You're going to include a header, and your header is going to have your last name and insert a page number, and it'll look like this on the top of each page, but not on the first page. And the way you do that is you double click anywhere above the very first line, and it'll put you into the header and footer tools, and you make sure that you check different first page. So again, at the top of the page, you'll have a header with the page number that'll simply consist of your last name, a space, and then you're going to insert page number. And I'll show you how to do that on the next slide. Then you're going to have a heading, which will include your name, the course number, the instructor's name, and the due date of the paper. That heading only appears on the outline page and the first page of the paper. From that point on, all you have is the header. To insert the page number, don't type a number. Go to the inside the header. Here's the header. And to get there, you simply double click up above the text of the paper. Make sure that this text is also Times New Roman 12-point font. You put your cursor after your name and one space, and you go up to the Insert menu and over to Page Number and Current Position, Plain Number. Then when you double click back inside the text of the paper, that becomes an object that on each page will change the number for you, so you don't have to change that yourself each time. Each page of your text will continue according to the content that I'm going to describe in a little bit. When you get to the end of the 10th page, don't simply stop because you think you have 10 pages. First of all, finish your thought. And secondly, make sure that your paper goes several lines onto the next page. If your paper is not at least 10 full pages, it will not receive a grade. So be very, very sure that you have at least 10 pages of content. And the way to do that is to make sure that it goes on to the top of the 11th page. Your works cited page will start at the very next new page, at the top of the next new page. So even if page 10 or 11 doesn't go all the way to the end, which page 10 will, if page 11 or more doesn't go all the way to the end of the page, The works cited page goes on to the top of the next page. The words works cited go centered on the page and then formatted from there. And this is done automatically for you when you use managed sources. Now, here's what belongs in the paper in what order. These are the requirements and they are not optional. You'll have an introduction, body paragraphs that include reasons and evidence, more body paragraphs that include emotional appeals, more body paragraphs that include opposing viewpoints and rebuttal, and a conclusion. I'm going to go through each section now and what belongs in it and about how long it would be. So in your introduction, you're going to include these kinds of things. They don't necessarily have to be in this order, but these kinds of things. For example, you're going to mention the issue that you're discussing and give us any background information that we might need. You also, and that might include some narration or some description. You're going to make sure that you define any terms that you're going to use throughout your paper that might be unfamiliar to your audience. And then any additional information your reader might need to understand your point. Depending on your topic, this section right here may be as much as a page, depending on what you have to say. But the very last sentence of your introduction, no matter how long it is, whether it's one paragraph or several paragraphs, will be your thesis statement. So you make sure that all this information, this introductory information, ends with the thesis statement. In your body paragraphs, you're going to begin with reasons. And a reason is why you feel your claim is true. And this is your opinion and your writing, although it doesn't use I or any personal information. And then you're going to back that claim up with evidence from your research. This is where you start citing things. And this is things that prove that what you've said here is true. For each reason, you might have as much as a page or even two. From there, you use as many reasons and accompanying evidence as you need to make your point. We put these things at the beginning of the paper because we want you to make your case first. In most cases, 3 reasons with accompanying evidence is just about enough for this size paper. Each of these could be as much as a page or more. Now, depending on the size of the paper that you might be assigned in the future, this is how you make your paper longer. You come up with more reasons and more evidence. The next thing, and this is probably the most difficult part, is you want to come up with what does your audience need in order to believe you? What are their values? What are the things that your audience might be convinced by? And these might be as much as a half a page to a page each. And you use as many of them as you think you're going to need in order to convince your audience. There may or may not be actual citations in here. These may be just things that you believe, that you think your audience will need to believe you. And we'll go over that with Maslow's hierarchy later. The next thing you do is recognize the opposing viewpoints. It's the other side of the issue, the counterpoint. You'll describe it as you would describe your own point, and even use any evidence that the other side might use. So you might be citing something that is the opposite viewpoint of what you have. Each of these might be as much as a page. Then you're going to try to rebut or refute that point with your own point and any evidence that proves that you are right and that other viewpoint is wrong. You are not taking both sides. You're sticking to your point, but by recognizing the other point, you're making your argument stronger, and that might be as much as a page. You do this as many times as you think you need to do with as many opposing viewpoints as you might need. For the most part, 2 is usually enough. A viewpoint from the other side and any evidence they might have used, your rebuttal, and again, the same thing. In your conclusion, in a rephrasing of your claim, you make a final appeal to the needs or values of the readers and give them a so what. Why is this topic important to everybody? In other words, how does this topic make our lives better or different? Now, if we look at it this way, the number of pages in each section definitely depends on how many reasons and how many emotional appeals and how many opposing viewpoints. But to get to 10 pages, which a lot of people think is difficult, but it really isn't, you might have a page for your introduction, 2 or 3 pages for the reasons and evidence, a couple of pages for the emotional appeal, and as many as 4 pages for the opposing viewpoints and the rebuttal, and then a page for your conclusion. And that'll give you a 10-page paper. Now, to show you an example paper, I've taken that same paper I showed you in the beginning of this presentation and I've color-coded it so that you can see each little section here according to what it looks like on the outline. The person's introduction, their reasons and evidence, their emotional appeals, their opposing viewpoints and rebuttals, and of course their conclusion and their works cited. So here's this outline, and this was borrowed from one of former students' papers. I've color-coded the introduction blue. Remember, we're going to include the issue, any background information, any definition of terms, anything that our reader might need to know before we get started, simple stating of facts, maybe some narration or description. You're using all the kinds of writing that we've done so far in this class. And of course, it all ends with the thesis statement. So here's this introduction. A large number of people believe that paying teachers based on the performance of their students is a good practice. However, it is one of the most destructive practices that occurs in America's education system. Although many people believe that this method of paying teachers ensures that students get the best education they can, it does not. Because of merit-based pay, teachers are commonly labeled as poorly performing due to factors outside of their control. Unmotivated students, students with learning disabilities, students living in poverty, and changes in curriculum are all capable of unfairly causing a teacher to be paid less or even lose his or her job. But merit-based pay doesn't just negatively affect teachers, it also has a negative impact on the students that they teach. When teachers are more concerned about their students' performance than their ability to retain and apply the knowledge they are given, the student's education suffers. And here's the thesis. Paying teachers based on the performance of their students is extremely harmful to America's education system and should be banned. This person chose merit-based pay as a topic. They've given us a little bit of background information and then hit on the major points of their paper and then chosen one side very clearly and told us what should happen to that policy or stance. Now, could this person have done more here? Yes. This person could have given us a little scenario in here, a description, an example of what a classroom looks like when a teacher is teaching to the test, or what it looks like when a teacher simply teaches toward knowledge. But for now, this introduction is okay. Here's what it looks like on the page. Again, here's the heading, and here's the header. There's the title, and you'll notice there's no extra spaces in between all of these things. It's simply 4 lines of heading, the title, and the very next line is an indented beginning of the very first paragraph, this introduction. And that's as long as the introduction for this paper looks on the page. Now we move on to the reasons and evidence, and each of these is color-coded. Remember, this is where you tell why you think you're right and back it up with research. Why you feel your claim is true, and what official researched evidence do you have to prove that point. Here's what this first one looks like. One of the most important reasons why teachers shouldn't be paid based on merit is that the evolution of America's education system is incompatible with this method of payment. That is the statement of the reason why this person believes they're correct, and it's introduced with that as the topic sentence. From there, this student gives some reason based on evidence, and I'm going to actually provide this whole paper to you in Word so you can see not only the formatting but the content. So you'll be able to read this whole paper on your own. I won't read you the whole thing here. You'll see that there are separate paragraphs within this one section because every time there's a new idea, you should have a new paragraph. We won't simply have giant chunks of text uninterrupted. Every time there's a new idea, either a new piece of evidence making a point or a new point, we have a new paragraph. But this first reason and evidence is just about a little under a page and a half long. The next reason, factors outside of the teacher's control, is green. And again, that we're just pointing out why we feel it's true, your own opinion, your own thoughts, your own writing, and then researched evidence to back it up. This one is just about a page and a half as well. And it transitions from the last idea by using a transitional word, another reason why teachers shouldn't be paid based on merit. So we make sure that everything is linked together and it's easy to read. We continue to do this throughout the body paragraphs until we have fulfilled all the reasons that we think our claim is true. So here's what it looks like in total. We've got the introduction. Here's the first reason and its evidence. Here's the second reason and its evidence. And here's the third reason and its evidence. Now we're already on page 5 of this 10-page paper, and we're ready to hit the emotional appeals. The emotional appeals, there's no certain number of them, 1 or 2 or 3, whatever applies to your topic, are going to be things that will convince us that this point is true. As readers, we don't simply accept facts and research. We need a little bit of persuasive writing here. And it's not made up, but it's certainly something that we have to think about as writers. What do our readers need? And we know certain things about the skeptic on our topic, and that's something that takes a little bit of thought. Everybody always has questions about this section. Let me just give you this example so you can see. So we might have 1 or 2 or 3, depending on, and they could be as much as a half page or a page each. In this one, this is about a page. This is a little less than a page. It's the red and the yellow. And those are the 2 emotional appeals. By the time this person gets done addressing those emotional appeals, they're on the top of page 7. So as you can see, the emotional appeals are, about 20% of the paper or so, but it's a very important section because it comes right before the opposing claims. The opposing viewpoints, this is the other side. This is the counterpoint to your point. And you're going to describe it just as you would have described your own, even using evidence or research from the other side. Could be as much as a page. Then, of course, to come back to your point, you always want yours to be the last point someone reads. You don't want to have the opposing point hanging out there at the end. You refute it, you rebut it. So you use research that is the opposite of what that is so that you can cancel out that above point, and that might be as much as a page. Some people ask, isn't this the same research I just used? Well, no, it's going to be specific to the opposing viewpoint, so you plan that out ahead of time. Here's what that looks like. Here's the opposing viewpoint on a page, and here's the rebuttal. And you can see that it's just almost the same length. By the time we finish that rebuttal, we're on the top of page 9. We do that again with another opposing viewpoint. And here it's this teal color and blue color. Okay, so this one's a little bit shorter. But by the time we finish that one, we're in the middle of page 10 and we're ready for the conclusion. In the conclusion, you don't repeat, but you restate or rephrase the claim. any final appeal to needs or values, and then you give us that so what. Why do we care about this topic? Why have I just spent all this time reading these 10 pages? What do you want me to do about it? That conclusion in this example is pink, and it looks like this. Paying teachers based on the performance of their students is very harmful to America's education system. That was one of our original statements, and it was also something that appeared in the emotional appeals. While some seem to think merit pay acts as an incentive for teachers to teach well, that's one of the opposing points, it actually lowers the quality of the education that students receive, and that was also one of our emotional appeals. It encourages teachers to teach content without teaching the skills that are needed to apply the content. In addition, merit pay is not a fair method of compensating teachers, and that was one of the reasons, and some evidence was there to back it up. There are many factors other than a teacher's merit that can influence student performance, most of which are outside of a teacher's control. If in merit pay situations, when students perform poorly and their teachers are not at fault, their teachers are still paid as though they are at fault. And that's a point that is another emotional appeal that was inside our, in the body of our paper. Changes in curriculum and increased course difficulty can also cause poor student performance, and in merit pay situations can cause lower teacher salaries. Therefore, and here we are, this is what you want me to do about it as a writer. A ban on merit pay for teachers must be enacted. If such a ban is not enacted, the results for America's education system could be catastrophic. Merit pay is gaining popularity and will likely spread throughout America if nothing is done to stop it. This could cause serious problems for both the teachers and students of the future. Teachers will be subject to an unfair method of pay, and students will receive poor instruction. If the students of the future are not taught how to apply what they learn well enough, America's education system will become a failure. The education system of many other countries has already surpassed America's education system, and allowing merit pay for teachers to spread will only make the situation worse. Action must be taken immediately to stop these things from happening. Banning the use of merit pay for teachers is one of the most important steps America can take to advance its education system. Now, one of the things that I would have done as the writer of this paper is take it even further. I would have told what will happen to us all if this doesn't stop. So if teachers are losing their jobs, we have unemployed teachers. If students are not educated, they're entering the workforce not able to apply skills they never learned. And from that point, the quality of all our lives is down from what it could be because we don't have skilled workforce and quality education. All right, so at this point, the citations and the works cited appear. We want to make sure that you're paraphrasing and citing your work, your research. The work cited is going to be done for you by managed sources. All you have to do is make sure you put the information in. As you use a source, as you read a source and take notes, put that information in managed sources right away. Then you won't have to go back and do it later. If you don't use it, you'll simply take it off the current list. But if you use it, it'll be there, and that way you can cite it. When you put things in your current list and you cite them in your paper, it will check them off for you. It'll show you that you've used all the sources that you have. You can always also go back to this bibliographic entry and make any changes. But most of all, when you use managed sources, I can go back and look at what you've done and go back to your source if I need to. Then, while you're writing your paper, whenever you need a source, you simply click Insert Citation, click the one where the information came from, and it will cite it in your paper for you correctly. It'll be a in-text citation like this, and each of those in-text citations becomes a dynamic object. So when you right-click it, you can edit the citation right there, or you can even edit the source or update the field. A complete paper for this assignment has both correct formatting and organized content. Correct formatting includes 10 or more pages of research paper, not including the outline page or the works cited page. The first page includes a heading and an outline, no page number. The next page includes the heading, a title, the beginning of the paper plus the text, plus that continuous header with page number. The whole paper is in Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, and is double-spaced and has a proper works cited page. The content of the paper is organized and follows this pattern: the introduction, ending in a thesis statement, transitions between all paragraphs and all sections, reasons and evidence, emotional appeal, opposing viewpoints and rebuttal, and a conclusion. This is an important project. It's worth a lot of points in your grade. If you have any questions, please ask.